I have shot for this client in this warehouse for years, getting some really interesting images. The more times you shoot in the same place, the harder it becomes to come up with something interesting. When I said to the client, I've got an idea on something we can do here, he said, great. In today's Slanted Lens lesson, we're going to show you how to create motion in the background by keeping the camera and the subject tied together on a moving object. By moving the camera and the subject together, we allow the stationary background to become blurred. This technique can be used if your subject and camera are on a boat, a bike, a car, or a Ferris wheel. First, I placed the tripod on the forklift with sandbags so it's secure. I extended the tripod out to get the right angle so I can see the driver and the crate in the front. The camera at this point is upside down, which makes it a little awkward to work with, but you'll get used to it. I focused on the driver. I wanted that to be sharp. First, I set the color temperature at 3900 degrees. There's fluorescence, tungsten, and strobe lights here, all at work at the same time, so I placed the color balance to give me a nice mix between those three. Second, I set the ISO at 320. I'm going to need the extra speed to get the aperture I want and the length of blur that I need for the background. Third, I set the aperture at f8. I want to keep things in focus. That gives me a nice focus. I now set the shutter speed to 1/5 of a second. The client wanted a shorter blur in the background so that things were a little bit recognizable. I kind of liked the longer exposure that gave us a much more undefined and blurred background. Here's my first exposure. The room has enough light to blur sufficiently, but the man's face is a little dark. We're going to add some strobe lights now to brighten his face. Our first strobe is a Hensel Portipack with 2 stops of ND on it. The Hensel Portipack is put on the floor next to the driver. The head's been mounted with a clamp to the forklift, so it's going to stay with the driver. Here's our shot with the first strobe. It's a little harsh on one side and needs some fill light, so we're going to add a second light. This is going to be a bit tricky because there's no place to attach the fill light to the forklift, so we're going to have to hand hold this light. Now you can see the fill light and the blur at work. I'm using the Canon remote to fire the camera, so as I walk along, as I hear the shutter end, I just shoot again. Before I deliver the final image to my client, I'm going to do some work on the image in Nik software. I first added contrast in Color Effects Pro. Better, I like the deeper blacks. When they're crushed, it just has a nicer look now. I then took the image to Vivesa, where I took the structure up, giving more grain in the box and highlights in the black area of the forklift. I feel like the image is now ready to deliver. It's one of those times when the image as set up to do a still shot is going to make a very interesting time lapse as well because of the motion in it. So there's something you can play with and keep on clicking.